The checkered tablecloth went down first, then the shoes on each corner so it would not blow away. That was how a summer picnic began in 1963. Everything in that basket had been cooling on the counter since dawn. Your mother wrapped the plates in foil. Your father carried the cooler with both arms because it weighed more than any suitcase he ever packed. Nobody looked up a recipe. Nobody needed to. Wait until you get to number 17. It showed up at every church social and graduation party in the South, but ask anyone under 40 and they have never seen one. And number 5 comes from a butcher shop tradition that the modern grocery store ended for good. These foods turned a patch of shade and a blanket into a dining room. So hit subscribe, because here are 25 summer picnic foods from the 1960s you will never taste again. Number 25. Frozen fruit salad. Your mother made this the night before in a loaf pan lined with wax paper. Cream cheese beaten smooth, folded into whipped cream, then studded with maraschino cherries, crushed pineapple, and miniature marshmallows. She froze it solid overnight and sliced it like bread right before you left for the park. Each slice held its shape for about 20 minutes in the July heat, which was exactly long enough. It was dessert and salad at the same time, and nobody questioned that. Most families used the recipe on the back of the marshmallow bag. It came out pink from the cherry juice, firm from the freezer, and sweet enough that children ate it without complaint. You do not see it anymore because nobody thinks of salad as something that belongs in a freezer. Number 24. Pineapple cream cheese sandwiches. White bread with the crusts cut off and a filling made from Philadelphia cream cheese mixed with a can of crushed pineapple drained through a dish towel until almost dry. Some women added chopped pecans. Others folded in mayonnaise to keep the filling soft during the drive. You cut them into triangles, stacked them on a plate under a damp cloth so the bread would not go stale. These were tea sandwiches moved onto a picnic blanket, and they worked because they traveled cold and held together in the heat. Churches in Mississippi and Alabama made them by the hundred for funeral receptions. They disappeared when luncheon culture dried up, and nobody brought them back. Before I go further, for the folks who want more recipes like these gathered in one place, I put together the Vintage Recipe Guide. You can find it on my website vintagelifestyleusa.com. I will not push it again. If you want it, it is there. Now, back to the list. Number 23. Stuffed celery sticks. You washed the stalks, cut them into 3-inch pieces, and filled the groove with cream cheese mixed with chopped green olives and a shake of paprika. Some families used peanut butter for the children and the olive mixture for the adults. The whole tray went into the refrigerator overnight so the filling would set, and by the time you spread the blanket at the park, they snapped clean when you bit in. Celery on its own was a hard sell for most children in 1964, but the filling turned it from a vegetable into something closer to a snack. You would be hard-pressed to find anyone under 50 today who has stuffed a celery stick on purpose. Number 22. Olive loaf sandwiches. Olive loaf was a processed lunch meat sold at the deli counter with whole pimiento-stuffed green olives pressed into every slice. You could see the circles running through it like polka dots on a summer dress. A sandwich was bread, yellow mustard, and 3 slices straight from the butcher paper. Nothing else on it. Oscar Mayer and Eckrich both made a version, and every small-town deli sliced it fresh on Saturday morning. The taste was salty and faintly smoky with a briny bite from the olives, and the texture landed somewhere between bologna and a thick, cold salami. Children either loved it or refused to touch it. There was no middle ground with olive loaf. It held on through the 1970s, but the deli case slowly replaced it with turkey breast and roast beef, and that strange pink meat with the green circles baked in quietly faded from the counter and from memory. Number 21. Ambrosia salad. Mandarin orange segments, pineapple chunks, shredded coconut, miniature marshmallows, and sour cream stirred together and chilled overnight until the flavors bled into each other. Some families added sliced bananas right before serving so they would not brown. Others folded in pecans, but the base was always citrus and coconut held together with something cold and creamy. You brought it to the park in a Tupperware bowl with the lid pressed tight, and it sat next to the fried chicken like it belonged there. The name meant food of the gods, and most grandmothers treated it exactly that way. It showed up at nearly every potluck and summer spread from East Texas to the Carolinas through the entire decade. It fell out of favor when marshmallows in a salad started to sound strange to younger cooks, but for a whole generation, ambrosia was as central to a gathering as the blanket you sat on. The economics of a 1960s picnic were invisible to anyone eating on that blanket. Nobody called it meal planning. Nobody wrote a budget on the back of an envelope. But every dish was built around the same quiet math. Feed the family on what you already had, waste nothing, and make it look like abundance. The cream cheese stretched the fruit. The bread stretched the meat. The gelatin stretched everything because it was cheap and a mold made it look like effort. These were not recipes from having too much. They came from knowing exactly how far one grocery run could stretch in July, when the electric bill doubled and the garden tomatoes were still green on the vine. Number 20. Cold fried chicken wrapped in wax paper. This was the centerpiece of every family picnic in the early 1960s, but you did not eat it hot. You fried it the night before or at 5 in the morning, let it cool on a wire rack, then wrapped each piece in wax paper and packed it standing up in a brown paper bag. The coating set firm as it cooled, and by noon it had a crust that gave a quiet snap when you took a bite. Thighs and drumsticks were the picnic pieces. Breasts dried out. Most women seasoned the flour with salt, pepper, garlic powder, and a touch of cayenne, and the fat came from a coffee can of saved drippings or a tin of Crisco in a cast-iron skillet. The chicken traveled without a warming tray. You pulled it from the paper and ate it with your hands, and it tasted exactly the way summer was supposed to. Number 19. Watermelon rind pickles. Every summer, after the family ate the red flesh of the watermelon, the rinds went into a pot. Not the hard green skin, but the pale white layer between the green and the red. You peeled the outer skin, cut the white part into cubes, and soaked them in salt water overnight. The next morning, you drained them, boiled them until tender, then simmered them in a syrup of white vinegar, sugar, cinnamon sticks, whole cloves, and a few slices of ginger root. The kitchen smelled like a holiday in July. You packed the pickles into mason jars while the syrup was still hot, sealed the lids, and listened for the pop that told you the vacuum had taken. A single large watermelon produced enough rind to fill 4 or 5 pint jars, and a family that went through 3 melons in a good summer had a shelf stocked by September. Women traded jars at church. They brought them to picnics as a side nobody expected, and that sweet vinegar crunch next to cold fried chicken stayed in your memory for decades. Most women learned the recipe standing next to their mothers at the stove, watching the syrup darken, pressing a cube with a fork to check if it had gone translucent. Nobody timed it. You learned by watching. The practice reached back to a time when throwing away a watermelon rind felt the same as throwing away food, which in rural Alabama or the Carolina Low Country in the 1930s was something a family could not afford. Today, a jar at a farmer's market runs $8 or $9, but the tradition of saving your own rinds and filling your own jars on a slow July afternoon has mostly gone quiet. Number 18. The cheese ball rolled in pecans. 1 block of cream cheese, a cup of shredded sharp cheddar, a splash of Worcestershire sauce, and a dusting of onion powder mixed together and shaped into a ball with wet hands. You rolled it in finely chopped pecans until the outside was covered, wrapped it in plastic, and chilled it until firm. It sat on a cutting board at the picnic with a butter knife stuck in the top, and people tore pieces off between bites of everything else. Every hostess in the 1960s had her own version. Some added hot sauce, others mixed in crumbled bacon. The cheese ball was never the main event. It was the thing you ate while you waited for the plates to get passed around, and that waiting was half the picnic. You will not find one on a blanket at the park anymore. Store-bought cheese logs and plastic tubs of pimento dip replaced it, and nobody bothers to shape one by hand when a sleeve of crackers and a grocery store container do the job in seconds. The homemade cheese ball left when the women who rolled them stopped being invited to make the spread. Number 17. Ribbon sandwiches. These were the showpiece of a church picnic spread, and the women who made them treated the work like carpentry. You took an unsliced loaf of white bread and an unsliced loaf of wheat, cut them lengthwise into flat slabs, and layered them with 3 fillings between alternating colors of bread. Cream cheese with chopped olives on one layer, a smooth ham spread on the next, softened butter with watercress on the third. You pressed the stack under a heavy plate in the refrigerator for 2 hours, trimmed the crusts, and sliced crosswise so each piece showed clean stripes of white and brown. The result looked like a magazine photograph. Ribbon sandwiches required time, a serrated knife, and a steady hand. That is why they disappeared when the women who made them stopped hosting. Number 16. Sweet pickled peaches. You bought cling peaches in heavy syrup, drained the liquid, and simmered the halves in a fresh mixture of white vinegar, sugar, cinnamon sticks, and whole cloves until the syrup thickened and the fruit turned a deep amber gold. Some women poked 3 or 4 whole cloves directly into each peach half so they looked like tiny pincushions sitting in the jar. You served them cold, straight from the refrigerator, as a side dish next to the meat. The sweetness cut through the salt of the fried chicken and the bite of the mustard on the sandwiches in a way that nothing else on the blanket could match. Every Southern grandmother had a version on the pantry shelf, lined up next to the pickled okra and the bread and butter pickles. Sweet pickled peaches were a fixture at holiday tables and summer spreads from the 1940s straight through the end of the 1960s. The tradition of spicing them yourself and bringing a full jar to a summer gathering is gone. Number 15. Congealed fruit salad. This was Jell-O with intentions. You dissolved a box of lime or strawberry gelatin in boiling water, let it cool slightly, stirred in a can of fruit cocktail, poured it into a ring mold or a rectangular baking dish, and refrigerated it overnight until it set completely solid. The fruit hung suspended in the colored gelatin like ornaments trapped in stained glass. Some versions included cottage cheese folded in for body. Others had a layer of whipped cream spread on top just before serving. You unmolded it onto a plate lined with crisp lettuce leaves and carried it to the picnic under plastic wrap pressed tight against the surface so it would not sweat in the car. It jiggled when someone walked past the blanket, and every child at the gathering stared at it like a science experiment they were not allowed to touch. Congealed salad confused outsiders and delighted the people who grew up eating it, and its disappearance from picnic blankets and potluck tables left a gap that grocery store fruit trays never quite filled. There was a time when a picnic was not a casual decision. It was a production. Someone fried the chicken, someone boiled the eggs, someone made the Jell-O the night before and prayed the mold would release clean. The cooler had to be packed in the right order, heavy on the bottom, fragile dishes wedged between towels. The car smelled like fried food and vinegar by the time you reached the park. And when everything was laid on that blanket, you saw the full output of a kitchen that had been running since before sunrise. It was one family deciding that a Saturday afternoon outdoors was worth 6 hours of work. That decision is what gave the food its meaning. Number 14. Perfection salad. This is the dish that launched the American gelatin salad movement, and most people alive today have never heard its name. In 1905, a woman named Mrs. John E. Cook from Newcastle, Pennsylvania, entered a recipe in a contest sponsored by the Knox Gelatin Company. She made a molded salad from unflavored gelatin, lemon juice, white vinegar, sugar, shredded cabbage, diced celery, and chopped green pepper. It was savory, not sweet. It looked like a dome of pale green vegetables suspended in a clear, shimmering block, and the judges, one of whom was Fannie Merritt Farmer, awarded it third prize and gave it the name Perfection Salad. The idea was straightforward. Take cheap vegetables, suspend them in gelatin, and turn them into something elegant enough for a formal dinner table. By the 1960s, every church cookbook in America carried its own version. Some added pimiento for a spot of red. Others stirred in grated carrot for sweetness. At a picnic, you unmolded it onto a lettuce leaf and ate it with a fork if you could manage or a spoon if you could not, because gelatin in the summer heat did not wait for polite table manners. The dish survived 2 world wars, the Depression, the entire post-war boom, and the golden age of Jell-O cookery. It finally disappeared in the 1980s when vegetable salads went back to lettuce and vinaigrette, and the idea of setting shredded cabbage in gelatin became a punchline at dinner parties. But for the better part of 80 years, perfection salad held a place of quiet honor on the picnic blanket, and the women who made it never once doubted the name. Number 13. Potted meat on saltine crackers. Armour or Libby's in a small flat can that cost less than a quarter. You peeled back the lid with the key attached to the side, spread the paste on a saltine with a pocket knife, and ate it sitting on the tailgate of the station wagon. It was your father's picnic food, the thing he reached for before the real spread came out, while your mother was still arranging the plates and laying the napkins under the silverware. The ingredients on the label were vague on purpose, but the taste was salty, smoky, and dense enough to fill you up on 3 crackers. 1 can and a sleeve of saltines kept a grown man out of the way for 20 minutes. Potted meat is still on the shelf at the dollar store, but the ritual of eating it off a pocket knife at a family gathering belongs to a generation that is mostly gone. Number 12. Sardine sandwiches. A can of sardines packed in oil, drained and mashed onto bread with a fork, topped with a thin slice of raw onion and a squeeze of yellow mustard. Some men added a few drops of hot sauce. Others ate them plain with nothing but the fish and the bread. Sardine sandwiches were a working man's picnic food, cheap and dense and rich enough in protein to carry you through an afternoon of fishing or horseshoes at the park. The cans needed no ice and no refrigeration. The bread came from the bag. The whole thing took less than a minute to put together, and you ate it standing because sardines were not a food anyone lingered over. They smelled strong, tasted stronger, and divided every gathering into 2 firm camps: people who grew up eating them and people who stayed upwind of the blanket. The camps have not changed in 60 years. The sandwiches just stopped showing up. Number 11. Deviled eggs carried in a special tray. You boiled the eggs that morning, peeled them under cold running water, sliced them in half lengthwise, and scooped the yolks into a bowl. The filling was mashed yolk, a spoonful of mayonnaise, a squirt of yellow mustard, sweet pickle relish, and a pinch of salt, all spooned back into each white half and finished with a shake of paprika across the top. Most families owned a molded plastic or ceramic deviled egg plate with oval indentations that cradled each half so nothing slid during the drive. You covered the tray in plastic wrap, set it flat on the back seat, and told the children not to put their feet near it. At the picnic, those eggs vanished first. Before the chicken, before the sandwiches, before anything else was unwrapped. The version you remember is gone. Not the eggs themselves, but the whole production around them. The dedicated tray riding in the back of a station wagon, the paprika shaken from a tin that lived in the same cabinet for a decade, the woman who started boiling water before the sun came up because she refused to bring anything store-bought. That ceremony does not exist anymore. Today they come pre-made from a deli container, and nobody rides 20 minutes with a ceramic plate balanced on a folded towel. The eggs survived. The ritual did not. Something happened between the 1960s, and now that is hard to name but easy to feel. Convenience solved a real problem. Nobody misses the 6 hours of cooking. Nobody misses worrying about mayonnaise in the sun. But the trade was not even. When the food got easier, the gathering got smaller. When the gathering got smaller, the reason to cook from scratch got harder to justify. A picnic in 1963 fed 12 people from one kitchen. A picnic today feeds 4 from a deli counter. The food is safer. The plates are disposable. And the memory is thinner because there is less to remember when everything came from a plastic container with a barcode on the lid. Number 10. Lemon icebox pie. 1 can of sweetened condensed milk, the juice of 3 lemons, and a tub of whipped topping folded together and poured into a graham cracker crust. No baking. You stirred the filling, scraped it into the crust, and set it in the freezer for 4 hours. The acid in the lemon juice thickened everything without heat, which meant you could make a pie in July without turning on the oven. It came out firm enough to slice but soft enough to eat with a fork by the time you reached the park. Tart, cold, and so simple that a 12-year-old could pull it off alone. The icebox pie disappeared when kitchens stopped having iceboxes and dessert tables started expecting something from a bakery box. A lemon bar or a key lime cheesecake replaced it on the spread, and the woman who used to bring the icebox pie stopped making it because nobody asked for it anymore. The simplest summer dessert lost its seat at the picnic to something with a receipt attached. Number 9. Homemade Chex Party Mix. Corn Chex, wheat Chex, pretzel sticks, mixed nuts, a stick of melted butter, and a generous pour of Worcestershire sauce, tossed on a sheet pan and baked low and slow until every piece was toasted and coated in that salty glaze. Your mother made a double batch because a single recipe disappeared in one afternoon. She packed it in a brown grocery bag, and by the time you parked, the bag had grease spots along the bottom. You ate it by the handful, standing around the cooler, licking the seasoning off your fingers. Ralston Purina printed the recipe on the cereal box for years. The commercial version in the foil bag came later and killed the homemade batch for good. Once you could grab a bag off the shelf for $2, nobody stood over a hot oven in July, stirring cereal on a sheet pan. The recipe is still on the box, but the brown grocery bag with the grease spots at the bottom has not ridden to a picnic in decades. Number 8. The relish tray. A divided glass or ceramic dish with separate compartments for celery sticks, carrot sticks, black olives, green olives, sweet gherkins, bread and butter pickles, and radish roses. The radish roses alone took 20 minutes to carve with a paring knife. You soaked them in ice water so the petals curled open, and they sat in their compartment looking like tiny red flowers arranged between the pickles and the olives. Every item on the tray was cold, crunchy, and meant to be eaten with your fingers between bites of heavier food. The relish tray was the palate cleanser of the 1960s picnic, the quiet thing that kept your mouth refreshed between the fried chicken and the baked beans. It took planning, a sharp knife, and someone who believed that a spread on a blanket in the park deserved the same attention as a holiday dinner table. Nobody under 40 has carved a radish rose or arranged gherkins in a crystal dish. That tray is in a box at the thrift store now, and the whole ritual it stood for went with it. Number 7. Banana pudding made the real way. Not from a box, not from instant pudding powder stirred into cold milk. You cooked the custard on the stove from scratch, whisking egg yolks, sugar, flour, and whole milk over medium heat until it thickened enough to coat the back of a wooden spoon without running off. Then you layered it in a baking dish with Nilla wafers and sliced ripe bananas, alternating custard, cookies, and fruit until the dish was full to the rim. Meringue on top, browned under the broiler until the peaks turned gold. You covered it in foil and wedged it into the cooler between the potato salad and the tea jug. It arrived soft, cold, and heavy. The wafers had absorbed the custard overnight and turned into something between cake and pudding, and the bananas had gone tender and sweet against the vanilla. This was a dessert that required patience, a steady hand at the stove, and a grandmother who refused to cut corners. The instant version replaced it on most tables, but nobody who tasted the real one ever accepted the substitute. Number 6. Cold meatloaf sandwiches. This was not a planned recipe. This was what happened to Monday's meatloaf by Saturday morning. You sliced it cold from the refrigerator, laid the slab on white bread, spread ketchup on one side and yellow mustard on the other, and wrapped the whole thing in wax paper for the drive to the park. The meatloaf was denser cold than it ever was hot. The fat had solidified through the meat, and the ketchup glaze on top had firmed into something almost like a candy shell. It held together in your hand like a proper sandwich, which the hot version, straight from the oven, never managed. Cold meatloaf sandwiches were the quiet backbone of summer picnics in families that wasted nothing, which in the 1960s was nearly all of them. Nobody made meatloaf specifically for sandwiches. You made it for Tuesday dinner, and the sandwiches happened naturally because the rest of the loaf was still sitting in the pan by the weekend. That whole system vanished when families stopped making meatloaf from scratch every week. Grocery store delis and fast food drive-thrus replaced the leftover loaf, and the cold slab on white bread wrapped in wax paper went with it. If you grew up eating on a blanket in a public park in the 1960s, you learned something about food that no restaurant teaches. A meal does not need a table. It does not need matching plates or cloth napkins. It needs people who showed up, food that someone made with their hands, and a stretch of grass where the ants are manageable. The dignity of a picnic was not in the presentation, it was in the effort. Someone got up at dawn and fried chicken for 12. Someone peeled eggs and stuffed them at the counter in bare feet. Someone made a pie without turning on the oven because the house was already too hot. That effort was a kind of love that never announced itself. It just showed up in a basket and fed everyone. Number 5, head cheese sliced thin. This was not cheese at all. It was a cold cut made from the head of a pig, simmered for hours until the meat fell off the bone, then pressed into a loaf with the natural gelatin from the cooking liquid holding it together. When you sliced it, the cross-section showed a mosaic of shredded pork set in clear, firm jelly. Your butcher made it in the back of the shop. You ordered it by the half-pound at the counter, and he sliced it on the same machine he used for the bologna. At a picnic, you ate it on a cracker, or folded between bread with mustard and raw onion. The tradition came from German and Eastern European immigrants who settled across the Midwest and the Upper South. When the small-town butcher shops closed and the supermarket deli took over, head cheese lost its maker and its audience in the same decade. Number 4, cold baked beans brought in the pot, not heated at the park, not warmed over a grill. Cold, straight from the refrigerator, spooned onto a paper plate next to the chicken. Your mother baked them the day before with brown sugar, molasses, salt pork, dry mustard, and a sliced onion on top. By morning, the sauce had thickened into a dark glaze that clung to every bean. You did not need to reheat them because cold-baked beans tasted better the second day. The molasses deepened. The salt pork melted into the sauce. The pot had a density that the hot version never reached. Cold beans from an enamel pot at a park table in 1965 was a summer experience that does not exist anymore. Number 3, cottage cheese and canned fruit plate. A scoop of cottage cheese centered on a lettuce leaf, a canned peach half placed on top with the curved side facing up, and a single maraschino cherry set in the hollow like a bullseye. That was a complete plate at a 1960s picnic, and nobody apologized for the simplicity. Some versions used canned pear halves instead of peaches. Others arranged pineapple rings around the cottage cheese like the petals of a flower. The whole thing took 30 seconds to put together and looked like it came straight from the pages of a women's magazine, which it usually did. McCall's and Good Housekeeping ran these fruit plates on their summer covers all through the decade. It was light, cold, and the thing you reached for when the fried chicken felt like too much in the heat. The combination faded away when cottage cheese stopped being a kitchen staple and canned fruit stopped being something you arranged on a plate for company. Number 2, pigs in a blanket made from cocktail wieners. Little smoked sausages wrapped in triangles of canned biscuit dough and baked until the dough puffed golden around each one. You made 3 cans worth because they vanished the moment the plate touched the blanket. Children grabbed them with both hands. Men ate 6 or 7 standing at the cooler before anyone sat down. They traveled well, tasted good warm or cold, and required 2 ingredients and 15 minutes. The cocktail wiener version was the picnic version. The fancier ones with puff pastry came later and never carried the same pull. Something about the size made them impossible to stop eating. You could finish 10 and still claim you had not started. That particular picnic pig in a blanket is gone now. The canned biscuit dough and the little smoked sausages still sit on the same grocery shelf, but nobody wraps them anymore. Party platters from the warehouse store took their place, and the woman who used to bake 3 sheet pans of them the morning of the picnic stopped being the one in charge of the spread. Number 1, your mother's potato salad. Not from a box, not from the back of the mayonnaise jar. Hers. Potatoes boiled until just soft enough to hold a fork, cooled and cubed by hand, tossed with hard-boiled eggs, sweet pickle relish, yellow mustard, a scoop of Hellmann's or Duke's depending on where you lived, diced celery for crunch, and salt and pepper adjusted 3 times because she tasted it at the counter with the same spoon she stirred with. It went into a covered bowl and did not come out until the blanket was down and everyone had found shade. Potato salad was the test. Every woman at that picnic made one, and every woman tasted every other version without a word. Nobody writes that recipe down because it was never about the measurements. It was about standing in the kitchen before dawn, cooking for people you loved, and knowing the dish you carried to the park would be the first thing they reached for and the last thing they mentioned on the drive home. That potato salad is gone, not the dish. The grocery store sells it by the pound, but your mother's version, the one she adjusted 3 times and carried in the same bowl every summer, left when she did. And nobody who bought the plastic tub from the deli case ever claimed it tasted the same. The late 1980s and early 1990s brought a new wave of potluck stars to church picnics, and virtuous vegetable pizza squares quickly claimed a spot near the top. With a flaky crescent roll crust, a tangy ranch-seasoned cream cheese base, and a colorful array of diced fresh vegetables, this dish was as visually appealing as it was satisfying. It struck a balance between indulgence and health, offering a lighter option without sacrificing flavor, a rare feat on a picnic table laden with heavy casseroles and desserts. The practicality of this dish was a major reason for its popularity. The recipe was straightforward, the ingredients were affordable, and the end result could be made ahead of time and served cold. This made it perfect for picnics, where refrigeration wasn't always guaranteed. It was also highly customizable. Broccoli, carrots, peppers, or even a sprinkle of cheese allowed for personal touches, ensuring it could cater to nearly any palate. So, why did these savory squares fade into the background? Part of the reason lies in the rise of pre-packaged veggie trays and dips, which offered a quicker, less labor-intensive alternative. Additionally, the appeal of ranch-flavored dishes has waned over the years as food trends shifted. We have talked a lot about wraps, but what about the great stuff that goes with them? Chick-fil-A filled in the side item role pretty well with its spicy chicken biscuit, which today you can get for $2.25. But back then, during their golden days, both quality and popularity, you could get them for half a dollar. Spicy chicken biscuits were also great as a combo meal with a drink and a side of your picking, and that was something people definitely reacted positively to. The company noted the growing trend of spicy food and predicted that the upward momentum would stay that way, and boy were they right. Even if they played a good part in keeping that pace going in the ever-developing food scene of America, people in general wanted more stuff with a kick. Chick-fil-A really saw an opportunity and grabbed it, and breakfast menus were forever better for it. In the era of resourceful cooking, few desserts embodied practicality quite like a fruit cobbler made with canned fruit cocktail and a biscuit crust. Fellowship fruit cobbler was a mainstay at church potlucks, offering a sweet, bubbling dessert that could feed a crowd with minimal effort. The dish gained traction in the mid-20th century, when canned fruit cocktail became a pantry staple in American homes. A product of clever marketing and food preservation innovation, fruit cocktail offered a colorful mix of diced fruits that made desserts feel festive. Topping it with a simple biscuit crust not only stretched the dish but gave it that golden, flaky finish that felt homemade even when shortcuts were taken. As versatile as it was, the cobbler started losing its shine by the late 20th century. Fresh fruits became more accessible year-round, and modern palates leaned toward desserts with more nuanced flavors and textures. Canned fruit cocktail, once a novelty, began to feel dated. But for those who grew up with it, this cobbler remains a comforting reminder of shared meals, church fellowship halls, and a time when food was about bringing people together, not about impressing them with gourmet flair. In the mid-1900s, elegance and practicality often found their way onto the same plate, especially at church picnics and social gatherings. Righteous ribbon sandwiches were a shining example of this fusion, a visually striking, multi-layered finger sandwich that was as much a feast for the eyes as it was for the stomach. These sandwiches combined cream cheese, thinly sliced cucumbers, and pimento spread, layered between vibrant slices of white and rye bread. The name may have sounded fancy, but the recipe was delightfully simple, showcasing the resourcefulness of home cooks. Ribbon sandwiches were the epitome of versatility. They could be made in advance, sliced into perfect little portions, and adapted to suit almost any flavor profile. Need a vegetarian option? No problem. Add more vegetables. Want something heartier? Swap in a layer of ham or chicken salad. Their small size made them easy to serve and eat, ensuring that no one risked losing their sandwich during a spirited game of horseshoes. So, why don't we see them anymore? As trends shifted toward more casual grab-and-go fare, the labor-intensive ribbon sandwiches slowly fell out of favor. A mini skillet bowl sounds healthy enough, right? That was not the only fast food name that would take a step in a more greener direction, as McDonald's came out with their fruit and yogurt parfait sometime after their big breakfast, initially being a sweet cup you could get for just $1. It was also a wonderful breakfast if you were trying for a healthier lifestyle or were one of those early morning run people. Maybe you had the gym in the afternoon and were keener on lighter breakfasts, or maybe you just want to get your fruit game up. Either way, the parfait sold in waves and made sales go high for an item that was irregular from the rest of the menu. Unfortunately, it was something they discontinued during the pandemic to make service quicker for workers because everyone prioritized minimizing contact back then. In the days when nothing went to waste, a pot of slow-cooked beans with hog jowls and onions was a way of life. Rooted in Southern cooking traditions, this hearty meal was a staple at church potlucks and community gatherings. Pinto beans, rich in protein and fiber, were an affordable way to feed a crowd, while hog jowls, a cut from the cheek of the pig, added smoky, savory depth that transformed the humble legume into something extraordinary. Historically, this dish thrived in communities where resourcefulness was key. Hog jowls, often considered a byproduct, were a favorite in Southern cuisine, where the whole hog philosophy reigned supreme. Combined with onions and slow cooking, the result was a dish that was simple yet deeply flavorful. And let's not forget the practicality. Beans are inexpensive, shelf-stable, and could simmer all day while the cook tackled other tasks. But as modern tastes shifted, hog jowls fell out of favor. Health trends, coupled with the rise of leaner meats, left this dish behind in the dust of culinary history. Convenience foods like canned beans and pre-seasoned mixes didn't help either. In the 20th century, church picnics were more than gatherings. They were culinary showcases, where simple ingredients turned into unforgettable creations. Among these was a dish that perfectly embodied practicality and crowd-pleasing charm: the hot dog crowned with creamy coleslaw. Born in the South, where coleslaw was practically a religion, this combination united two beloved staples into a handheld masterpiece. It was cheap, easy to assemble, and had the rare gift of tasting just as good warm as it did after sitting out for a hymn or two. The versatility of this dish made it a picnic powerhouse. Whether paired with smoky barbecue sauces or left unadorned, the coleslaw added crunch, tang, and a cool contrast to the savory hot dog. It was the kind of recipe where you didn't need a culinary degree, just a willingness to roll up your sleeves and pile it high. Kids loved it. Adults appreciated its simplicity, and even the most novice cooks could pull it off. But as convenience foods grew in popularity, fresh coleslaw recipes fell by the wayside. Pre-packaged sides and fast food chains stole the spotlight, leaving the Salvation slaw dog behind. Speaking of dreamy sandwiches that set the mood just right, it would be downright criminal to record this and not talk about Jack in the Box's prime rib steak and egg sandwich. A warm flour tortilla wrap with hash browns, prime rib, cheese, onions, and a lot more, making it one of the most premium savory thrills you could get on an affordable budget. People ate these up like goblins, sparing no thought for the punch to their gut health-wise or how heavy one of these really was. Listen, this really shouldn't be too surprising if you know anything about prime rib steak and America's long-standing love for each other. It has always been one of the most popular ways to get your protein, and the idea of prime rib steak sandwiches and other bread-based dishes is not new. What was new was the innovative flavors Jack in the Box managed to hit and maintain with its sauces, and we gotta say, adding in the hash browns definitely helped too. Something we would spend a quarter of our paycheck on if it came out today for sure. During the 1970s, baked chicken dishes were the unsung heroes of potluck dinners, and this one, with its honey, pecan, and mustard glaze, struck the perfect balance between sweet and savory. Holy honey pecan chicken brought a touch of sophistication to the church potluck table, elevating humble chicken into a dish that felt both hearty and refined. The roots of this recipe trace back to Southern cooking traditions, where pecans were abundant and honey was a natural sweetener long before sugar became widespread. By the mid-20th century, recipes like this embraced the availability of affordable chicken cuts and pantry staples like mustard and honey. Chicken was cheap, easy to prepare, and universally loved, while the glaze was a clever way to turn basic ingredients into something special. So, why don't we see it much today? Part of the answer lies in the rise of boneless, skinless chicken breasts and pre-marinated options, which eliminated the need for labor-intensive glazes. Add to that the growing preference for lighter, grilled dishes, and this once popular recipe found itself fading into culinary obscurity. In the kitchens of the South, where comfort food was practically a calling, one small golden snack became a beloved staple at church picnics and potlucks alike: sausage balls. These bite-sized morsels, made from sausage, cheese, and a touch of baking mix, were the perfect balance of savory and satisfying. They were an art form of resourcefulness, transforming simple pantry staples into something people would talk about long after the picnic ended. Sausage balls gained popularity in the mid-20th century when convenience mixes like biscuit became household essentials. Their practicality was unmatched, easy to make, even easier to transport, and nearly impossible to mess up. Whether served warm from the oven or cooled at room temperature, they held their flavor and texture, making them a no-brainer for any gathering. They doubled as appetizers, brunch sides, or even game day treats. So why did they fall out of favor? Over time, shifting dietary trends and a preference for more elaborate finger foods nudged them off the menu. Today, they are just a reminder of simpler times, when recipes were about taste, tradition, and togetherness, not calorie counts or culinary fads. Sonic kind of stood out from the rest of the crowd with their take on a burrito-based breakfast. Their breakfast burrito had plenty of sausage, tots, cheese, and some bacon to top it off. It was pretty beloved, even though Sonic did not have the same pull as some of the biggest names in the fast food industry. Now, do not get us wrong, they were popular and a good local breakfast option, but their popularity was not as widespread as, let's say, McDonald's. As time passed, newer chains like Chipotle introduced their breakfast burritos that gained more traction than Sonic could generate. This meant a downfall in popularity for a breakfast burrito that once was loved by every person that visited Sonic. This led to the burrito being discontinued sometime at the start of the 2000s. Steamed puddings might sound old-fashioned today, but in the 1970s, dishes like Faithful Fig Pudding carried the weight of centuries-old traditions. Made with dried figs, molasses, and a blend of warming spices, this dessert was a nod to the rich culinary heritage of European settlers. It was dense, aromatic, and perfect for church gatherings, where a hearty dessert could double as a centerpiece. Historically, steamed puddings were practical creations. Long before ovens became common household appliances, steaming was a reliable way to prepare desserts, particularly during the winter months when ovens were occupied with other dishes. Dried figs and molasses were staples in American pantries, thanks to their long shelf life and affordability. Combined with spices like cinnamon and nutmeg, they created a dessert that was rich in flavor and relatively inexpensive to prepare. Despite its deep roots, fig pudding began to fade as tastes shifted toward lighter, quicker-to-make desserts. The lengthy steaming process required patience, a virtue many modern cooks didn't have time for. In the world of potlucks and church picnics, the holy hoagie dip was the kind of dish that sparked curiosity and kept people coming back for seconds. Inspired by the classic Italian hoagie, this creamy dip combined diced deli meats like salami and ham, provolone cheese, crisp lettuce, tomatoes, onions, and zesty Italian dressing, all folded into a creamy mayonnaise base. Served with toasted baguette slices or crackers, it was essentially a hoagie deconstructed and ready to share. No messy sandwiches required. The dip's rise in popularity during the late 20th century mirrored America's love for Italian-inspired cuisine and the growing trend of turning traditional dishes into crowd-friendly dips. Its versatility made it a potluck superstar. Adjust the meats, toss in some hot peppers for spice, or lighten it up with low-fat ingredients. The options were endless. Plus, its no-cook preparation meant less time in the kitchen and more time enjoying the gathering. So why did it fade into obscurity? Part of the decline can be attributed to a cultural shift toward lighter, healthier fare. The cream-based dips of yesteryear gave way to hummus and veggie platters, something that was as essential to the hearty sandwich experience in the 80s as the meat itself. The cinnamon raisin biscuits that they first released back then are also something people have constantly expressed their desire to see again. Seriously, it was impossible to not order this with whatever you were having. It was only some cents, and it elevated the meal to something else entirely. Think about how your Subway just does not feel complete without a chocolate cookie to go with it, except it is that feeling by 10 times. Cinnamon raisin biscuits were delectable, refreshing, and a light enough breakfast to be fulfilling without making you lazy. Unfortunately, for some odd reason unknown to all of us, despite its very warm place in the hearts of the fans, they took it off the menu in 2002. In the 1970s, dips reigned supreme at church potlucks and family gatherings, and few were as delightfully quirky as dill pickle dip. A creamy blend of sour cream, cream cheese, and finely chopped dill pickles, this tangy appetizer offered bold flavor with minimal effort. Whether served with crackers, chips, or vegetable sticks, it was an unexpected crowd pleaser that stood out among more traditional offerings. This dish emerged during an era when convenience and creativity defined home cooking. Dill pickles had been a staple in American pantries since the early 20th century, and combining them with creamy bases like sour cream or cream cheese was an innovative way to transform basic ingredients into something new. It was practical, too. Easy to whip up, affordable, and well-suited for large gatherings. So, what happened to this retro favorite? As culinary trends evolved, so did dips. Flashier, more complex recipes featuring exotic ingredients like artichokes and sun-dried tomatoes became the new standard, leaving humble dill pickle dip behind. And for those with pickier palates, the sharp, briny flavor wasn't always a hit. Dill pickle dip evokes nostalgia for an era when recipes were shared on index cards, and the measure of a good potluck dish was how quickly it disappeared. Prayerful pasta primavera salad was one of these newcomers, combining tender pasta with fresh, crisp vegetables like bell peppers, cherry tomatoes, and zucchini. Tossed in a zesty Italian vinaigrette, this cold salad brought vibrant colors and refreshing flavors to any gathering, offering a welcome reprieve from heavier dishes. This salad excelled in versatility and practicality. It could be prepared a day ahead, allowing the flavors to meld together beautifully. And it traveled well, perfect for outdoor church picnics. The recipe was also flexible. Any combination of vegetables could be used, depending on what was in season or on hand. Even picky eaters could find something to enjoy in its customizable mix. Add a sprinkle of Parmesan, and it could easily transition from a simple side dish to a more filling option. So why has it become a rarity? As pre-packaged pasta salads and pre-made dressings became widely available, the labor of chopping fresh vegetables and mixing homemade vinaigrettes seemed less appealing. Modern convenience overshadowed the care that went into making this dish. McDonald's is also something you usually associate with burgers, fries, and a pretty good shake just like Wendy's, but they would also try to rebrand a little with their McSkillet burrito. Originally something they launched in the November of 2007, it was a masterpiece that captivated people immediately and became one of the biggest parts of their sales, giving their breakfast menu just as much success, if not more, than anybody else's. When you think about a McSkillet, you should imagine one of those monster burritos from Chipotle. This was just as famous as those which were pretty much the king of the burrito game, but people would often begin alternating between the McSkillet or outright switching to it. We mean it really went well with some steak and roja sauce as add-ons. It is just that the McSkillet was not particularly a new concept, so when the initial hype died down, it got discontinued in 2013. Even now, there are still many online petitions to bring it back, so who knows? Few aromas could fill a church kitchen quite like freshly baked dinner rolls. Soft, buttery, and served warm, These rolls were a symbol of homemade care and hospitality. Devotion dinner rolls were the kind of recipe passed down through families, often scrawled on flour-dusted recipe cards and perfected over decades of Sunday suppers and holiday feasts. Homemade bread has deep roots in American culinary history, long before mass-produced loaves became the norm. In the 1970s, scratch-made dinner rolls still held their place on church tables, reflecting a time when baking bread was both an act of love and a nod to tradition. With simple, affordable ingredients like flour, yeast, and butter, these rolls were versatile enough to accompany anything from soups to pot roast, making them a must-have at potlucks. So why are they now more a memory than a staple? Blame the rise of convenience foods. The introduction of prepackaged rolls and frozen bread dough offered busy cooks a shortcut that didn't involve kneading or proofing. And while nothing quite compares to the taste of homemade, time-consuming recipes often took a backseat as modern life sped up. During the leaner years of the mid-20th century, frugality and ingenuity were staples in the kitchen. Enter the blessed bologna spread, a creamy, tangy concoction made from finely ground bologna, mayonnaise, and chopped pickles. A true testament to making the most of what you had, this spread transformed an inexpensive lunch meat into a flavorful filling for sandwiches or crackers. For church picnics and potlucks, it was a go-to dish, easy to prepare, affordable, and guaranteed to feed a crowd. The beauty of this spread lay in its adaptability. It could be served between slices of soft white bread, stuffed into hollowed-out celery stalks, or simply spooned onto crackers for a quick snack. Bologna itself, once a refrigerator mainstay, offered a rich, salty base that paired perfectly with the zing of pickles. It wasn't fancy, but it didn't need to be. This was food meant to nourish and bring people together, not impress. So, why has this humble spread disappeared? Changing tastes and the bologna stigma, yes, it exists, contributed to its decline. Once hailed as a budget-friendly staple, bologna lost favor to more sophisticated options. The McDonald's steak, egg, and cheese bagel came out around the same time as its big breakfast, and was often something families ordered together when they ate out. The incredible mix of egg and cheese with really flavorful steak bits into a bagel was something people in the States could not get enough of. It was especially popular with the older crowd, which is funny because the company initially thought it would be more popular with the younger crowd. Back then, you could get this bagel for $1.25, which was a reasonable steal and a perfect add-on at the time. Breakfast menus around the nation had a hard time competing with the steak, egg, and cheese bagel. And despite it being discontinued, it is an 80s icon we really want back. In the mid-20th century, prunes enjoyed a moment in the culinary spotlight, and desserts like prune whip became surprisingly popular at gatherings. Light, airy, and subtly sweet, this dish combined stewed prunes with whipped egg whites to create a mousse-like treat that balanced indulgence with a touch of practicality. While it may not sound like the belle of the potluck table today, in its time, it was a creative way to transform a pantry staple into an elegant dessert. Prunes, or dried plums, were widely appreciated for their affordability and long shelf life. They were particularly common in post-war cooking, where resourceful homemakers turned simple ingredients into inventive recipes. With the rise of gelatin-based desserts, prune whip fit right into the trend of light, fluffy textures. It also offered a surprising nutritional bonus. Prunes were, and still are, known for their digestive benefits, making this dessert as functional as it was flavorful. By the late 20th century, however, prune whip fell out of favor. Healthier eating didn't hurt it. Marketing did. Prunes became saddled with a reputation as grandma food, overshadowing their versatility. Mid-century America loved a dish that could pull double duty, easy to prepare and satisfying enough to feed a crowd. Picnic pea salad supreme fit the bill perfectly. This chilled salad, made with sweet green peas, crispy bacon, shredded cheddar, and a creamy dressing, was a real statement. In an era when canned and frozen vegetables were kitchen staples, this salad offered a way to transform humble peas into something extraordinary. It became a picnic regular, especially in the Midwest, where hearty and easy-to-make recipes reigned supreme. What made this dish so practical was its adaptability. The ingredients were pantry-friendly, the preparation was straightforward, and it held up well outdoors. No one likes a salad that wilts before the blessing. Its sweet and savory flavors appealed to kids and adults alike, and its vibrant colors made it visually appealing on any potluck table. Plus, bacon and cheddar, arguably the ultimate crowd-pleasing duo, did a lot of the heavy lifting. So, what happened? Well, somewhere along the line, supreme salads lost their shine. Health-conscious trends and the rise of pre-made options nudged recipes like this into obscurity. Next up, we have something that you would think people would want to have during a movie or their favorite show, but worked great as breakfast too. Burger King's French toast sticks first came around in 1985 in competition with Wendy's, who was also launching their own stick campaign in hopes of claiming a place in America's fast food Hall of Fame. And hey, they did, but the Burger King ones just had something saucy in them, something that gave you a jolt of energy for your regular sucky Monday morning shift or lecture. Some other places did try to make these toast sticks like Jack in the Box and Sonic, and some of those were pretty big players like McDonald's and Dunkin' Donuts. They did not have as big of a piece of the pie as Burger King, though. What particularly helped these sticks keep their momentum is how well they paired with other items on the menu, and even some of the others on this list later on. Of course, they were great a la carte as well, but who really goes to fast food joints and walks out without combo meals, especially in those old 90s days? Still, those eras are definitely far behind us now, as the time of the French toast stick is long gone by today. By the mid-20th century, desserts had begun embracing an unlikely star: whipped toppings. The faithful fluff salad was no exception. A mixture of pineapple chunks, instant pudding mix, mini marshmallows, and whipped topping. This dessert was as much a texture experiment as it was a sugary indulgence. Emerging during the 1950s and 60s, fluff salads rode the wave of post-war prosperity. Processed foods like instant pudding and canned fruit were symbols of modernity and time-saving innovation, making them ideal for busy families and church potlucks. Adding marshmallows, initially a campfire treat, brought a playful twist that appealed to children and adults alike. For many, it was a dish that straddled the line between fun and functional. But as the health-conscious trends of the 1980s took hold, this sugar-loaded dessert began to lose its charm. Critics pointed to its processed ingredients and lack of nutritional value, relegating it to fond memories of a more carefree era. Despite its decline, the faithful fluff salad remains a snapshot of its time, a reminder of when culinary creativity meant combining unlikely ingredients to bring a smile to the faces of churchgoers and potluck attendees alike. Fresh, vibrant, and undeniably wholesome, fellowship fruit kebabs were a beacon of color on church picnic tables. In an era when gelatin molds and mayonnaise-based salads reigned supreme, these skewers offered a refreshing alternative. Simple yet elegant, they featured a variety of seasonal fruits: pineapple, melon, grapes, and berries, artfully arranged on sticks and drizzled with a honey-lime glaze. The practicality of fruit kebabs was one of their biggest selling points. Easy to assemble, they required no utensils, making them a perfect grab-and-go option for outdoor gatherings. Plus, their versatility made them universally appealing. Whether you preferred tropical fruit, classic apple chunks, or a mix of whatever was on sale, the recipe adapted to suit any budget or taste. Add in the bright, tangy kick of honey and lime, and you had a snack that balanced natural sweetness with a touch of zest. So, what caused this recipe to slip into obscurity? Partly, the rise of pre-cut fruit platters took away the need for the extra effort. Additionally, the modern obsession with charcuterie boards and grazing tables overshadowed the humble kebab. In the 1980s and 1990s, lighter, vegetable-forward dishes began making their way onto picnic tables as health-conscious trends gained momentum. Speaking of eggs, the Burger King enormous omelet sandwich came out around 2005 and rocked breakfast menus just as much as a good McDonald's bagel. A behemoth in both size and calories, this drew so much attention on social media, and fans went in droves excited to try out the new mouth-watering monstrosity. For about $3.29, you could have yourself a full-course breakfast meal, and if you do not trust us, then no worries. The numbers speak for themselves, and Burger King saw a 20% hike in breakfast sales that left the bigwigs speechless. We guess you can never really go wrong with eggs and bread, which may just be the food equivalent of man's best friend. The 1970s were a golden age for layered desserts, and few could compete with the indulgent simplicity of a dessert built on butterscotch pudding, whipped topping, and a graham cracker crust. This was the era of quick-fix elegance, when convenience foods met the creativity of home cooks determined to make something memorable. Blessed Butterscotch Delight was a perfect example. Rich, creamy, and easy to assemble, it became a favorite at church potlucks and family gatherings. The popularity of butterscotch pudding soared during the mid-20th century, largely thanks to its warm, caramel-like flavor and versatility. Paired with graham crackers, which were already a pantry staple, and whipped topping, a revolutionary product that simplified dessert making, it was a dessert that anyone could whip up with minimal effort. And let's not forget the charm of its layered presentation, which made it feel just fancy enough to stand out on a crowded dessert table. So, why did it fade away? By the 1990s, pre-made desserts and lighter options had taken over. The heavy reliance on processed ingredients didn't help, as health trends began favoring fresh fruits and whole grains over pudding mixes and whipped toppings. During the heyday of church picnics, the fellowship hall often doubled as a proving ground for comfort food creativity. One such creation was a warm, gooey dish that stole the show every time it appeared on the table. A blend of melted cheddar, sweet corn, and creamy ingredients baked to bubbly perfection, this dip embodied everything a crowd pleaser should be: indulgent, shareable, and impossible to resist. Cheddar corn dip transformed canned or fresh corn into a culinary centerpiece, and its simplicity was part of its charm. The ingredients were affordable and readily available, and the recipe could be customized to suit any taste. Add a pinch of spice for heat, or serve it with an assortment of chips and crackers. The possibilities were endless. It also had the rare advantage of being just as good lukewarm as it was fresh out of the oven, making it ideal for long picnic afternoons. So why don't we see this dish anymore? Blame it on changing tastes and the popularity of less labor-intensive store-bought dips. In a world where convenience reigns, the Chapel Cheddar Corn Dip has taken a back seat. But for those who remember its rich, cheesy goodness, it remains a delicious symbol of community gatherings and the joy of sharing a dish made with love. Along the same time as McDonald's and Burger King was making breakfast items, you had Wendy's trying to get into the game early with their breakfast burrito, which really did do much better than they initially expected it would. People knew Wendy's for their chicken and their amazing square beef hamburger patties, so it is not surprising that some people went in with hesitant minds when they first ordered this. We always say you cannot know until you try, and that could not have been truer for Americans when they would start taking their first bites of a succulent, explosive breakfast burrito. It had a perfect mix of flavors and harmony between meat, vegetables, sauces, and bread, all in some very affordable. Wendy's use of cheddar cheese also really got people going and sold them on the idea Americans will eat almost anything if you put some hot melted cheese on it. The success of Wendy's newly propelled breakfast menu, including the burrito, slowed down around 2013, so it's pretty disappointing that you cannot get that same luxury yet incredibly cheap breakfast. Few dishes from the 1970s could walk the line between savory and sweet quite like this one. Sweet potato soufflé did just that. It was a culinary bridge between vegetables and dessert. With its cloud-like texture, cinnamon-kissed sweetness, and the signature marshmallow topping, it offered both comfort and spectacle at every church potluck or holiday gathering. The dish has deep roots in Southern cooking, where sweet potatoes have been a staple for centuries. During the mid-20th century, this recipe gained widespread popularity as canned goods and convenience foods became kitchen staples. Marshmallows, introduced in the late 1800s and heavily marketed in the 20th century, were the final flourish, a whimsical, sugary topping that turned a simple casserole into a crowd pleaser. Yet, as tastes evolved, the soufflé began to fade from weekly menus. The sugar-heavy marshmallow layer clashed with growing concerns about healthier eating. Sweet potatoes themselves survived the shift, reborn as fries, chips, and roasted sides. But the soufflé, with its unapologetic decadence, became relegated to holiday tables and church cookbook archives. In the heart of the South, where hospitality is a way of life, Dixie caviar was a dish that embodied community and resourcefulness. This colorful medley of black-eyed peas, bell peppers, onions, and tomatoes, all tossed in a tangy vinaigrette, earned its nickname for being the poor man's caviar. It was simple yet bold, and its vibrant flavors were a reflection of Southern ingenuity, turning pantry staples into something worth celebrating. The dish was practical in every sense. Black-eyed peas, long a symbol of good luck in Southern culture, were inexpensive and packed with protein, making them a staple in home kitchens. The fresh vegetables added crunch and color, while the tangy dressing brought it all together. Served with tortilla chips or crackers, Dixie caviar could function as an appetizer, side dish, or even a light meal. And its make-ahead nature meant it could be prepared the day before, allowing the flavors to meld beautifully. But as convenience foods and prepackaged dips grew in popularity, dishes like Dixie caviar began to fade. It also suffered from the misconception of being too simple in a world increasingly drawn to elaborate recipes. Costing nothing but $1 and 3 minutes of your time as the service worker assembled it, Taco Bell's mini skillet bowls were an amazing breakfast and lunch that people adored picking up. Why was it so good for takeout especially, and not a meal you would typically sit down and have? Because it was super quick in all regards, the preparation and the consumption. A quick affair to get you all readied up on your way to work or school, and it was always a sunny plus side that it left you with enough lunch money for later. In the corporate world, you really need cash on hand at all times for those midday cravings, and that is a part of why fast food culture and restaurants got so popular in the first place. Since the famous Old Bell decided to take down the mini skillet bowls from their already stellar menu, people have found quick substitutes and ways around it. It's hard to imagine now, but there was a time when raisins weren't just a snack stuffed into lunchboxes. They were the star of a chilled salad dish. Pair them with crisp celery, a dollop of mayonnaise, and a touch of seasoning, and you've got what churchgoers in the 1970s knew as raisin salad. This wasn't your ordinary potluck dish. It was a blend of sweetness, crunch, and creamy indulgence that stood out in a sea of casseroles. Believe it or not, this dish became a go-to because it was affordable, easy to prepare, and just unusual enough to get people talking. Historically, salads like these reflected the era's obsession with convenience and creativity. Mid-century America saw a boom in recipes that combined unexpected ingredients. Think Jell-O with shrimp or hot dog casseroles. The availability of inexpensive dried fruits, thanks to California's booming raisin industry, made raisin salad both practical and economical for feeding a crowd. Its downfall was changing tastes. By the 1990s, the rise of fresher, lighter fare left mayo-based salads feeling, well, a little heavy. And let's face it, some modern palates weren't ready for raisins mingling with celery. Still, for those who grew up with it, this dish evokes warm memories of church picnics and community gatherings. Few dishes captured the smoky, sweet essence of a church picnic like heavenly honey-glazed chicken wings. Sticky, tender, and bursting with flavor, these wings were a star attraction on many potluck tables, often disappearing before the blessing was finished. Marinated in a blend of honey, soy sauce, garlic, and spices, then grilled to caramelized perfection, these wings struck the perfect balance between sweet and savory, an irresistible combination. Chicken wings, once considered a less desirable cut, gained popularity in the mid-20th century as backyard grilling became a cultural staple. Their versatility made them a favorite for gatherings, easy to handle, universally loved, and adaptable to different flavors. For church picnics, they were a practical choice. Grilling could be done on site, and the wings didn't require utensils, making them ideal for outdoor events. But as time went on, the rise of fast food and ready-made options pushed homemade wing recipes aside. Buffalo-style wings dominated the scene, leaving behind the honey-glazed classics that required a little more time and effort. Additionally, concerns over sticky fingers and the mess factor may have played a role in their decline. Sometimes simple really does the trick, and with the Southern-style chicken biscuit that McDonald's put on their breakfast menu, they proved that old golden rule of thumb true to the core. Just a piece of slightly dry oregano-flavored chicken between two halves of a biscuit, this was a very popular add-on and basically a guaranteed order if you were getting hash browns or a whole combo meal from the breakfast menu. It was hard to hate on it because at the time it filled a niche that no one in the market was really taking up, which was a slightly more tame chicken biscuit, not a very spicy one. Plus, that commercial was pretty catchy when it used to air the time, and if McDonald's does anything right, it is the marketing. The Southern-style chicken biscuit got discontinued a while later as it fell out of popularity due to inflation. People did not see the point in paying that much for it, and we could not blame them. That is the list. 25 picnic foods that tasted like summer and family, and a Saturday that moved slow. If one of these brought something back, tell me in the comments which dish your mother or your grandmother used to bring. And if you have not made one in a long time, pick one this week. Freeze the fruit salad, stuff the celery, make the potato salad the way she did. I am James, and I will see you in the next one.